Today I'm talking about remote cameras, and I brought in a famous band member to show you how it all works. You're going to see it on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey there everybody, welcome back. Here I am, as always, answering your photography questions. Don't forget to go to askdavidbergman.com. As always, submit your photo questions right there on the site. I just might pick it to answer here on a future show. Today's question was sent in by Les C, and Les wants to know, how do you shoot 2 or more cameras simultaneously? Les, thanks so much for sending that question. I really appreciate it. Look, if you've been a fan of my work for any amount of time, you probably know I'm a big fan myself of setting up remote cameras. And what that means is, back in the day when I used to shoot a lot of sports, it was very common to set up remote cameras. And there are 2 reasons where you would set up cameras that you're not physically holding onto and taking pictures by pushing down the shutter button. There are a couple of reasons why you would do that. The first one is so that you can put cameras in places you can't physically get to. At sports, a lot of times you'll see it up over the basket, right above the net. At a basketball game, obviously you can't be up there, but you can put remote cameras up there and then trigger them remotely so you can make pictures when there's a big play under the hoop there. And then the other reason is you can have multiple cameras up in different places and basically put yourself in multiple places at once. You can kind of clone yourself and have a bunch of different cameras all firing simultaneously. Now, again, I did this for many years in sports, but now that I work in concerts, if you're wondering where I am right now, I'm out on location. I'm on tour with Luke Combs all year long. Thank goodness we're back out on the road. We're somewhere in Ohio at a country festival, and I'm backstage under a tent. Not the greatest light here, but you make do with what you can when you're out on the road. But when I shoot concerts, because I work for the bands, I have the access to be able to put cameras up in places that you normally wouldn't have access to. So I put a camera, for example, near the drum riser almost every single show. I'll put a camera up there that I'm not touching. Now I can go up on stage and take pictures when I want to, but obviously I'm not up there the entire night. So if Luke or Bon Jovi or any of the bands that I'm working for, if they are on stage and they turn around to face the drum kit, if they face that direction, I can trigger that remote camera from anywhere I am in the arena or the stadium. So, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put up multiple cameras. I'll put a second one up, and I talked about this a few weeks ago when I was talking about concert photography and the gear that I use. I'll put a second camera up overhead. I can hang it from the lighting trusses and look straight down. And it gives me a lot of different options to make pictures. One person, I can make a lot of different pictures from different locations. But yes, it involves triggering them at the same exact time. Now let me give you an idea of how I do that. So this is a very typical setup for me. This is how I set up my stage camera, my drum riser camera. Now let me tell you what I've got here. So this, the stuff that looks normal is this is the Canon 1DX Mark III body. I've got the 24-105 f4 lens on here, and that's kind of a normal camera and lens. However, there's a few extra things. Underneath, for this particular remote, this is the Platypod. I'm not sure which one this is, the Max, I believe. They have a couple different floor plates. It's a floor plate, so it's nice and sturdy. I've actually attached some rubber grippy stuff on the bottom here so that when I put it down on the drum riser, it doesn't slide around. And then I've got a ball head on here. This is a Manfrotto ball head. That screws right on there. These Platypods are really cool because they come with a lot of different accessories, including some spikes you can put on there. So if you're out in the woods, you can actually raise and lower them individually. It's like a mini tripod, basically. That's why they call it a Platypod. And it's really easy to carry with me on the road. It doesn't take up any space. I'm not going to travel with a tripod, nor am I going to put up a tripod on stage, right? So this makes it really easy, and it's a very self-contained kit. But the key to all of making all of this work and triggering those at the same time is right up here at the top. This is the PocketWizard Plus 3. PocketWizard makes a bunch of different units. I like the Plus 3 and the Plus 4. The Plus 4 is very similar to this. It basically works the same way. It's just more of a horizontal shape. It's much more low profile. To be honest, for the stage remote, I usually use my Plus 4 on there because I just don't like it sticking up. I'm trying to keep everything as low profile as I can. So I will use that on there, but just for this demo, I'm using the Plus 3 here. Now, what this is, it's a radio transmitter, and then you have to get the correct cord to go from the Wizard to your camera. Not every camera, but a lot of cameras, many, especially the higher end cameras like this, have a remote trigger port. And it's really made so that if you buy the cord so you can just use a remote trigger, you know, it's connected and has a button on the end. If you're out taking pictures and you don't want to, you're on a tripod doing a long exposure, you don't want to touch the camera or get any motion, you can use one of those off-camera cords. But that same port is what you use for this. So you have to buy the This is PocketWizard makes these, they're called transceivers. They're both receivers and transmitters. You can switch it back and forth, or you can have it work either way. So I have this set up in the receiver mode because I just want it to receive the signal, and then through the cord, it will then trigger the camera, right? So let's talk about camera settings for a second. Oh, and of course PocketWizard, so you have to have a transmitter also. I have a 2+3. I usually either wear it on my belt, a loop on my belt, or during the show I'll hang it from my pass that's hanging around my neck, and it's very easy for me just to pick it up and trigger that. So that's how I trigger it during the show. Now again, I can have multiple cameras, as many cameras as I want, and as long as each one of them has a receiver on it, then I can go ahead and trigger them all just with my one transmitter. So that's how I trigger all those multiple cameras. Let's talk about settings for a second. Even as far as what lens you're going to use, look, that's a personal decision depending on what you're shooting. When I am out on Bon Jovi, for example, John Bon Jovi tends to come right up to the drum kit and he puts his arms out and he poses. There's a video camera there also, so he'll sometimes do that knowing that those cameras are there. And just to entertain the crowd, of course. So for that, I'll use a very wide lens, usually the 11-24, which is a beautiful wide-angle lens. Or in this case with Luke, the way the stage is set up, he really doesn't get quite as close to the drum kit because there's another riser there that he doesn't come up on usually. So, so a 24-70 is usually what I'll use for that particular shot. As far as settings, exposure-wise, I'm doing everything manually. Luckily, I know sort of what the exposure is going to be, so I can preset it. With a concert, it's hard to do any kind of auto exposure setting because a lot of times the spotlights are going to come in and hit the camera lens directly, the front of that lens, and that's going to throw the exposure way off. But I don't want it to. I want to set it manually, have it exposed for that angle looking, at the artist from the backside. So I'm going to preset it. I'll tell you what it is. Usually at a concert, when we have, big stage lighting and spotlights, it's usually a 6400 ISO or so. I'm going to push it way up so I can get a high shutter speed at f4 at 640, 800th of a second, something like that. Anywhere between 500 and 1,000. It's usually what I can get on that remote. So I'm going to set that manually, and then as far as autofocus, that's the tricky part, and again, that does depend on what you're shooting. If you're setting up a remote for basketball, and you know exactly where the action is going to be, you want to pre-focus that. There's going to be a lot of people and a lot of movement. If you autofocus that, it's just going to pick up the net, or it's going to pick up a hand that's closest to the camera or something like that. You don't want that. So with something like that, basketball, hockey, the one that's in the net at a hockey game, at a hockey match, you're definitely going to pre-focus that exactly where you want. Something like horse racing, we set up a lot of remotes. You want to pre-focus on the finish line or right in front of the finish line after you figure the jockey's going to stand up and celebrate. That's why you might set up multiple cameras, because you can get them crossing the finish line, and then you can also get them 20 yards past the finish line, figuring that there's going to be a celebration, right? So you really have to think about what the picture is. For concerts, I use autofocus, not on the overhead shot. The overhead shot I can manual because I know exactly where the plane of focus is. But the stage remote, I'm going to put that on autofocus because the artist is going to move around all over the place. Now, it's changed a little bit with the 1DX Mark III, the autofocus. I'm going to put it in pretty much the center section. I'll have it as wide as it goes, but with an optical camera, the autofocus section, even the widest zone autofocus, is still only the center-ish part of the camera, of your shot, of your frame. I have recently started using the R5, the Canon Mirrorless, as a remote camera. And that's awesome because it's full frame coverage of the autofocus, and I've got it on the eye, head, face, body detection autofocus. So I just used it for the first time at our first show last week, and it is amazing as a remote camera. I put a picture on my Instagram. I'm just at David Bergman if you want to go check that out, along with a picture of the drum remote. So you can see how good that works, being able to pick up. It may be my new all-time favorite remote camera. That R5 or the R6 would be the same thing, just fewer megapixels. But having that ability to have it autofocus, pick out a person and have it autofocus on them is pretty amazing. So I want to demo how this works today. I brought in a special guest today who's off to the side here, but we're going to bring him in. This is Kurt Ozon. He's actually a member. Hey, Kurt. He comes running into frame. Kurt Ozon, many of you actually know Kurt, who he is. First of all, he's a very famous musician. He's in Luke Combs' band. He's the multi-instrumentalist. He plays pretty much everything, right? And also a damn good photographer. This guy has picked up in just a few years. Really picked up photography very well. And So we hang out and we talk, we geek out about photos all the time. But I asked Kurt to come in. I'm going to use him to sort of demo how remotes work and how I can get multiple shots at one time. You ready to do some jumps for me? I'm gonna have Kurt do his best, like David Lee Roth air guitar jump right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this camera, I'm gonna put it in the corner there, you won't see it, and in the other corner over there I have another camera just like it with a 24-70 on it, with another remote, with another PocketWizard on it, and I'm gonna have Kurt jump for me a couple times, and I'm gonna trigger the thing. One more setting I didn't talk about is frames per second. If something like a jump, you can do it two ways. You can burst through it, right? Just shoot it. These cameras are 12 or 14 frames a second, whatever they are. The R5 is 20 if you go with the silent shutter, right? The electronic shutter, that's the word I was looking for. Mechanical, I think, is 14 or 12, something. It's a lot. So you can just burst through it. Or something like a jump, you might actually want to do single frames, right? And by the way, with PocketWizard, there are two different kinds of cords you can get. This is just the regular cord. You can add on another little piece that's called a pre-trigger. And what that does is it basically keeps the camera awake the whole time, right? It's like half pressing the shutter button. That way, if you know LeBron goes for a slam and you just want to hit that one shot, right? Just like that, then you don't want to wait for the camera to wake up because every millisecond counts. For concerts, I don't worry about that too much because the movement doesn't quite happen like that. For this case, so you might want to shoot single frames in some cases. With a pre-trigger cable, that's probably the best way to go. This case, the cameras are already awake. I'll hit them once before we shoot, and then I'm just going to burst through it, and I'll have Kurt jump 2 or 3 times, and we'll see what happens. You ready for this?
Born ready.
All right, I'm going to put this camera down over there. He's going to take his spot here, and let's get this one on the ground over here. Kurt, and let's aim that. And I'm going to stay out of the frame so you don't see me. I have my trigger here, and I'm going to fire it once just to make sure everything's awake. Yep, they're firing away. And Kurt, whenever you're ready, go for it.
Look at my hair.
Get your hair good. Nice. We're going to do that about 2 or 3 times and see how it goes. Ready? Go for it. Nice. I don't know if you guys can hear the cameras going off. I'm going to get closer to one of these cameras.
Cool.
It looks awesome. It looks awesome. Give me 2 more. Oh, you got to get more height than that now. Come on.
Good?
That one wasn't good. Give me one more. Go as high as you can. Nice. Give me one more. One more big one. Get the legs split like David Lee Roth. There you go. Kurt is now tired. Thank you, Kurt, for doing that. I really appreciate it. This is what the frames look like, right? So I have 2 angles of each one of those jumps, and I can pick and choose, right? When I'm using those remote images, I can basically decide I might shoot all night long pictures from those remotes, and if I get one great image from one angle, then I'm good. And everybody's gonna say, man, how'd you get that picture, right? And you know, you just have to think ahead and try to work it out. So that's how it works. Kurt, you wanna come take a bow? Come take a bow. Thank you, Kurt. I really appreciate that. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you use remote cameras? Is Kurt crazy for doing this? Probably. I mean, he's crazy anyway, but he's tired. We'll get him some water. The tour buses are right behind us here, and we've got generators going. Luckily, sound check, we're right in between sound checks, so we didn't have any sound problems. But thanks so much for joining me. Keep those questions coming in. Remember, go to AskDavidBergman.com. Hopefully, you're a subscriber. Kurt buys everything at Adorama, as do I. So hopefully you're already a subscriber to the Adorama YouTube channel. Go ahead and hit that button down below. Make sure you get notifications of all the new shows. You know when I'm back here with new questions every Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern. I hope you'll join me next week. Maybe Kurt will be back. I don't know. Maybe we'll do a fashion shoot next time. All right. I'll see you next time right here on Ask David Bergman.